This morning we are in the second week of a new series, and really it's only 4 weeks long. Man, we just did a series that was like 3 months. That was wild, wasn't it? That was a lot. But this series that we're in, we're going to spend just 4 weeks, and we're going to talk about prayer. We're going to talk about and it's titled "When It's Not Easy." Because we're not just talking about prayer when it is easy, because sometimes prayer, at prayer in its very basic form, really, it's just a conversation with God, isn't it? And man, even that in and of itself is pretty awesome to think about. That the God of the universe would have a conversation with me. That he would sit with me and talk to me and let me listen and let me talk, and then he would listen. And so sometimes that exchange feels easy and it feels good, doesn't it? To sit in the company of the Lord and to know that he loves me and that he's there with me. But if we're being honest in the room this morning, there are also plenty of times that prayer feels like the most difficult thing in the world. And so what do we do when it feels that way? Because it's very real, and we will encounter it. Because prayer is easy until it's not. It's easy until it's not. I've been journeying, with you guys here at Connection Point for a little over a year and a half now, but I've been in ministry for about 14 years. And over the course of those 14 years, I have had the absolute privilege of being able to just journey with people as they follow Jesus and as they figure out who Jesus is and what it means for their life. And over that time, I have encountered, just several people who are just going through things. And they'll shoot me a text, or they'll give me a call, or we'll meet up for coffee, and they'll talk about, maybe a season of life where they're experiencing difficulty. And inevitably, something that I feel like I hear over and over again, and honestly, something that I think I've said in my journey with Jesus. When life gets difficult, and it doesn't make sense, and it's hard to see what God is doing, I've had people look at me and say, I just don't even know how to pray right now. You ever been there? I just don't even know what to say to him right now. I'm so angry, I'm so frustrated, I'm so lost, that when I go to pray, I don't know. And so they struggle, and I've struggled with how to sit in the presence of God when it feels impossible, when it feels heavy and weighty. I mean, what do you say to him when all you feel like you have to offer is sorrow or anger or grief or embarrassment? And so we're going to begin to answer that question today. I say begin because there's no way that we're going to completely answer, how do you do that, right? But we're going to start. We're going to just take one step into what it might look like to pray when it's difficult. And we're going to use the book of Psalms to do that. We're going to use the book of Psalms to do that because this book can actually give us language for prayer, especially when it's not easy. If you've ever read the book of Psalms, so it's in your Bible, it's right there in the middle if you open it up, and there's 150 of them, so there's a lot to choose from. But the book of Psalms, really, if I had to sum it up super quickly, I would say that, man, it's honestly just a book about what it means to be human. When you open it up, you're going to find everything in there, from lament to praise, from sorrow and anguish and crisis to, Lord, you're good, and I praise you, and I'm thankful for you. You're going to find just a mixed bag of all of that, right? And what I love about the book of Psalms is it's all allowed to just exist together. Thank goodness, right? Because that's how I feel sometimes as a person. Lord, I'm a mixed bag right now. I'm confused, but I praise you. And I'm sad, but I'm here, right? And that's what the book of Psalms is. What I love about this book, too, is that all of it gets to be an offering. You hear me? All of it gets to be an offering. I don't know about y'all, but something that I've wrestled with as I've journeyed with Jesus is, man, I want to give him an offering of my best things. Anyone else? That's just that's kind of common sense. It kind of makes sense to do that, right? I want to give the Lord my best day, I want to give him the days where I feel like I'm serving him good and I'm doing all the right things. But what the Lord is teaching me and has been teaching me over the years is that he wants all of it. What? You mean even the days where I have failed miserably? You mean even the days I'm not proud of? You mean that I can take all of it to you as an offering, and if I would give it to you, you could redeem it? Yeah. And the book of Psalms, I think, reminds us of that. that all of it has a place in our journey towards Jesus. Like we said last week, we don't have to hide, but we can talk to him about anything. The book of Psalms was written for people like us. What I mean by that is people who are experiencing the in-betweens of life. When the book of Psalms was originally written, it was written to ancient Israelites who had spent a lot of their time in their journey towards God worshiping God at a temple where they would sing songs and they would praise and they'd come together, and it was a beautiful thing. But at some point in their history, they experienced, they were overtaken and they were sent into exile. And so what they had to do after that was they had to figure out what in the world it looks like to journey towards God when everything I know about like faith and how to worship has just been destroyed. Like it's been destroyed. And so they were people living in between the temple and this promise of a coming Messiah. They were living the in-between days of how do I figure this out? How do I journey towards God when it doesn't make much sense? Does that sound familiar? It sounds like us, doesn't it? People who are in between, waiting on the return of Jesus and trying to figure out how in the world to live in a world that sometimes doesn't look anything like him. It's a hard task, right? The book of Psalms was written for people like that, people like us. And if you are going through life and it feels like that, sometimes it can produce something. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about doubt and what it means to pray through doubt, what it means to journey with Jesus through it and not to avoid it. Even as I say the word doubt and it comes out of my mouth, I'm like, it's a heavy word, isn't it? It's a word that I think for each of us, we kind of get our own imagery of what doubt has meant for us or what doubt means to us right now. It's something that, it's not unbelief. It's questioning. But sometimes it feels like more than questioning. It can feel like a crisis, can't it? And it can feel like this really uncomfortable, unstable, unsure thing that can it can sometimes feel like the only thing on our heart or on our mind. And it's a hard thing to work through, doubt is. As I began to think about doubt, I asked myself this question, which is just, when have I experienced doubt in my own life? I started to think about that because, I didn't want to get up here and talk about something I didn't know nothing about. And so I thought, Lord, when have I experienced real deep wells of doubt in my life? And I sat there with him and I just let him remind me of my journey. And as I did that, I thought about the times that I've sat with parents who have lost children. And it's hard to say those words because they're not just words, they're faces when I say them. I've thought about the moments that I've held the hand of a mother or a father, and they've asked the question that I can't answer, which is, why did God let this happen? And you sit there in the doubt and the grief, and life is confusing for a moment, isn't it? I've thought about the times that I've been praying for someone's healing, and I've been asking the Lord to just restore their body and heal them, and then they pass away. And it doesn't make sense, does it? Lord, I did all the things. God, I trusted you. I prayed about it. I gave it to you, and we're still here? Lord, that doesn't make sense to me, right? I thought about the times that I've sat with victims of abuse, and they've questioned, if God is always with me, then where was he that night? Do you feel it? The doubt and the hurt that comes with those things. I've thought about the times that I have laid down at night to go to sleep. And I've prayed, Lord, please restore my marriage. Restore my relationships. Lord, me and this person aren't okay right now. God, would you restore it? And then I wake up the next day and it's still broken. And it still hurts. And maybe it feels even more painful than it did as I was laying down to sleep. I've thought about the times that someone has hurt me. Maybe someone I trusted. And I just didn't understand why. The room's quiet right now because doubt is real. And it hits, and when it hits, it hurts. And if you had to make your own list, you could. You could. Because as we journey towards Jesus, we will experience doubt. We'll experience moments where we just go, Lord, where are you at? Like, where are you at right now? God, what are you doing? Have you ever asked the Lord that? Lord, what are you doing? Because I don't see it. And I'm trying to trust you, but I'm having a hard time here. Or maybe we've asked, Lord, how long is my life going to look like this? If you've ever asked that, this psalm that we're in today is a really good place to be. So moving towards Jesus will cause us to journey through doubt. It will. It's not, well, the closer I get to Jesus, the less I'm going to doubt. I used to think that. The closer I get to Jesus, just the less I'll struggle with all the doubt stuff. And I'll be good. And I'll just believe, right? But the reality is that as we journey towards Jesus, we will experience, I think, honestly, more seasons of doubt and hurt. Why? Because as we journey towards Jesus, we are trying to find him in a world that sometimes looks nothing like him. Because we live in a fallen and broken world, right? We live in a world that needs Jesus desperately. And sometimes as we encounter the world around us, it looks nothing like the good God who made it. And in those moments where the contrast of the goodness of God meets the fallen nature of our world, it can create this moment of conflict in us where we look around us and go, how is this okay, right? This isn't the way this was meant to be. We're taking on the task of trying to find Jesus in a world that often doesn't look like him. And so then I think we have to ask ourselves this. What does it mean to experience the nearness of God while having deep, unmovable doubts? I don't have to wait to experience God's closeness until I'm done doubting. Hear me? But I can say, Lord, what does it mean to experience your presence even when I am really not okay? Even when I am really hurting and struggling? What does it mean? What does it look like? The reason I think this question is important because when we encounter moments in life where we experience that kind of hurt and doubt, really we have two options. We have a choice. As followers of Jesus, and honestly, even if you're in the room and you're like, I don't know how I feel about Jesus, like I'm just kind of here, I'm just kind of curious, that's perfect. You have a choice too, we all do. In moments where we experience deep wells of doubt, we have the choice to either look at that and go, you know what? Life is crazy, it's painful. The Lord, it doesn't look like he's doing anything about it, and so I'm going to take all of that doubt and I'm going to use it to just push God further away. And be like, yeah, if this is your plan, then I'm good. And just push God away. That's choice number one. Or we can make the decision to look at our hurt, to stare our pain straight in the face, and then to look at Jesus, to link arms with him, and to say, I know that when I hurt, you hurt too. And I know that if I see injustice and it makes me angry, then you see the injustice and it produces something in you too. And I know that if I feel pain, that you see it. And so I'm going to link arms with you knowing that you haven't forgotten me, but that you will actually journey with me, even in my deepest hurt and my deepest struggle. And I'm going to lean on you even when it doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to try and figure out what it looks like to live and to follow and to serve that way. We have two choices. Our doubt can move us towards Jesus or away from him. And that is, I think, one of the hardest things we'll ever do. Again, that can cause us to ask the question, Lord, how long? How long does life have to look this way? And so I want us to jump into Psalm 13 because it starts that way. So if you're ready, we're going to read the first two verses of Psalm 13 together. How long, Lord? How long, Lord? Can I just pause there? I want us to hear the anguish in that question. It's not like, sometimes I ride places with my kids and they're like, how long until we get there? It's not like that. It's, Lord, how long? I've been doing this a while. I'm weary and I'm not okay. How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts? And day after day have sorrow in my heart. How long will my enemy triumph over me? And so in the opening of this psalm, we encounter someone who is growing weary as they pray for difficult things, as they pray through difficult things. And they're being honest before the Lord. They're praying an honest prayer and asking him, Lord, how long until I can make sense of what's going on in my life? The writer even asks, how long must I wrestle with my thoughts? Have you ever been there? Could you have ever honestly prayed that prayer? Yeah. Lord, how long does life have to look this way? I think the reason why Psalm 13 verses 1 and 2 is so relatable is because meditating on the word and character of God will lead us to sit with doubt. And I think maybe the most important word in that sentence that I just said is the word sit. Oftentimes when I'm experiencing hard things, I want them to be quick, right? Lord, I can see how you can use this. It's great and all, but can we hurry it along? Can we get to the other side of this? But oftentimes, as you are journeying with Jesus, he will ask you to sit with him, to not rush through the valley, but to take as long as he needs to take to wrestle with you through the hard things. We can own our doubt and our pain as a necessary part of our journey towards Jesus. We don't have to hide it, pretend it doesn't exist, or avoid it. Well, I shouldn't feel this way. No, everyone encounters it. So give it to Jesus. Let him journey with you. It's a necessary part of the journey. What I'm learning in my life, it's active. I have not learned this. Me and Jesus are working through this. Is that if it gets me closer to Jesus, it's worth it. And I know some of you, when you hear that sentence, you're like, yeah, okay. And maybe you eye roll a little bit, and that's all right. I can handle that. But what I'm learning as I journey through hard things in life is that if it gets me closer to Jesus, y'all, it's worth it. Even the worst things that I go through. I was listening, actually it was yesterday, so Pastor Tim started a podcast. I don't know if you guys know that, but it's called the Jesus is Changing My Life podcast. And you can find it on Spotify or, Google it or whatever. And there's one episode out right now, and I listened to it yesterday. And what the podcast is it's just an opportunity for people to share their story about how Jesus is changing their life. And so he's interviewed, some people, and yesterday I listened to Jonathan's episode. And thank you, again, for what you shared. He shared some of his story and some of his journey, and I really appreciated the things that he had to say about how God has shown up along the way for him. But something that really stood out to me as I was getting to the end of the episode was he said something that I thought, yes, as I have contemplated what we're talking about today, yes, this is why it matters. This is why it's important. He said, essentially what he said was, journeying with Jesus, it's not always about forward movement or getting from one spot to the next. And even when I heard him say that, I thought, oh, I'm guilty of that. Lord, if we could just get from here to here, that'd be great. Come on, let's go. My timeline, let's do it. But it's not about just getting from one spot to the next. But he said sometimes it's just about proximity. It's just about being near him, being close to him. Because if you're close to him and you can cling to the nearness of Jesus, then I don't want to say it doesn't matter because that minimizes it, but man, it almost doesn't matter. It makes the things that we encounter in life somehow bearable and manageable because the nearness of Jesus, it gets us through. And if what I go through gets me closer to him, then it's worth it. Somehow, it's worth it. It reminded me of Romans 8:35 and 37. It asks this rhetorical question in that scripture. It says, who shall separate us from the love of Christ? It says, shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? It's not an exhaustive list. What he's doing is he's creating like a running list, right? So we could even say like, does grief or does doubt, right? And then it says, no. In all of these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. The nearness of Jesus is what matters. And it will carry us through seasons of deep hurt and doubt. Let's keep reading in Psalm 13, verses 3 and 4. It says, look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. And so now, the writer is going from, okay, Lord, I've expressed my hurt and my frustration to you, and now I'm asking you, Lord, look on me and answer. God, I need you to see me. And then what he says, give light to my eyes. And what the writer is expressing there, because I looked at it in so many different translations, and what the writer really is just expressing there is, God, please intervene and give me some understanding. Like, give me some insight here. Give me some wisdom because I'm out of it, and I need you to help me understand. He's saying, I need you to help me understand or I'm going to give up. I'm going to give up. Have you ever been there? Jesus, I need you to show me something because I'm not okay and I'm going to give up. And he's owning that that's where he is. And he's asking the Lord to give him understanding. And can I just say that leaning on Jesus for understanding is a great place to be. Sometimes I feel comforted when I think I have life all figured out. But what I realize often, like so often, is that I just don't. And that when I lean on him for understanding in moments that are difficult, it is the best place to be. And it's because we can face doubt knowing that Jesus experienced grief and sorrow and anger too. And as I spent some time thinking about my own sorrows and my own doubts, man, I thought about who Jesus but who he was in the Gospels, like in the account of when he put on flesh and came down and spent time like with people here walking the earth. I thought about the life that he lived and how, even from the very beginning, like the world was out to kill him, right? I thought about the moments with the disciples where the disciples doubted and they were a little confused. Like, Jesus, what are you doing? We don't understand. This isn't the way we thought this was going to go. I thought about him in the garden. I thought about Jesus praying and asking the disciples to stay awake with him, right? And he felt what even the scripture reminds us of is that he felt overwhelmed and sorrowed and deep, deep pain in the garden. And then to go from there to being betrayed, and then from there to actually taking up the cross and having to die a terrible death. For then his disciples to enter into another season of confusion. And I thought about Jesus enduring all of that grief and sorrow and pain. And I thought, Jesus, if there's anybody who knows what it is to suffer, it's you. But why did he do all of that? Why did he come down from heaven, put on flesh, and endure all of that? Well, church, it's exactly what we just said, because he understood that the nearness of Jesus would change our lives, that it would completely change us. And he said, you know what? If it gets me closer to them, it's worth it. If it gets me closer to them, it's worth it. Enduring the cross suddenly somehow became worth it because he understood that we needed to be close to him. If it gets me closer to Jesus, it's worth it. If there's anybody who can handle your doubt, it's him. And he wants to journey through those moments with you. We've got 2 verses left in this psalm, okay? It's just 6 verses. We've got 2 left to read. Verse 5 and 6 say this: "But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me." Now, man, that's a verse you can stitch on a pillow, right? We didn't start there. We started with, "Lord, how long have you forgotten me?" And somehow, in just 6 verses, we're to unfailing love and trust. And I don't know about y'all, but as I read that, I thought, if I'm starting with, "Lord, how long have you forgotten me, like I'm not okay?" I'm going to need more than 6 verses to be okay. Like, I'm going to need some time, like maybe weeks, maybe months, I don't know. And then I began to question, what I don't think is happening here is the writer is just saying, like, okay, I'm good now. Like, we went from, one extreme to the next, and now everything's fine. But what I think is actually happening is the writer is making the choice to trust that even in the moment where he feels forgotten, or he feels hurt, or he feels sorrow, or he feels doubt, that even there he can say, "Lord, my heart can still somehow rejoice in your unfailing love." That even when I'm not okay, you're good. And even when I experience moments that are difficult, Jesus, as I'm journeying towards you, I still have a reason to praise. Lord, you've been good to me, even in the midst of my hurt. And what I want us to notice about verse 5, and if I could just ask for like a favor, if you guys could just all do me a favor. Can I ask for like a collective favor here? That anytime you're reading in the Word and you see the words unfailing love, especially if you're reading like in the Psalm or like in the Old Testament, okay? And you see the words unfailing love or steadfast love or loving kindness, could you do me a huge favor and just go look and see what that word is in Hebrew? And I know that sounds so dorky, but in this verse, it is like my favorite word for unfailing love. In the Hebrew, it's the word hesed. And the reason it's my favorite is because it's not simply like the feeling of love. This word describes love that will act. It's not just like, oh, the Lord kind of like feels good about you or he likes you. But when the word describes God this way, it's describing a God who loves us so deeply that he would do whatever it takes to show us that love, that he would even give his son to show us that love. It's a love that expresses kindness and loyalty and faithfulness and mercy and goodness, and it does it with action. It's a love that's been moved and that now has to do something about it. It's a love that looks at our world and says, yes, I must create a plan to redeem it. And so while you're living in this world that looks nothing like me, I'm going to journey with you until the day that I make it right, because I'm going to make it right, because I have unfailing love for you. That word expresses a love that doesn't leave and that must do something about it. And so at the end of this psalm, I asked the question, and I think it's a good one for us as we wrap up today. It's just, can journeying through my doubt reaffirm my trust in God? Can journeying through my doubt, not ignoring it, not avoiding it, or pretending like I don't have it, or even like, just trying to like coast through it, but can actually journeying through it, giving it to the Lord, talking to him about it in honest ways, actually reaffirm my trust in who he is. Because as I'm honest with him and I let him enter into my suffering with me, He shows me how to experience his nearness in a world where I encounter so much that looks nothing like him. And the car conversation, it really honestly is just another way to ask this question. It's we offer car conversations so that you can just take this that we're talking about, because if what we're talking about in this room matters, then let's talk about it at home, right? This is just a way that you can take what we're talking about this morning home with you and ask the question with the people that you live with the people you love. It's how can being honest about my doubts help my relationship with Jesus? So this morning, as we wrap up, I want us to honestly consider, how can the doubt that I feel, the difficulty that I experience, the hurt and the confusion at times that I feel, how can I link arms with Jesus, who can handle those feelings and allow it to actually bring me closer to him? Because if I can get closer to him, then it's worth it. As we end this morning, I really just want to read Psalm 13 over you. I want to read Psalm 13 over you, and I want us to just sit in the words, because prayer is easy until it's not, right? And some of you in this room might be finding it really difficult to talk to the Lord right now. Maybe you related to those first two verses of just how long, Lord? Like, what are we doing? Have you forgotten that I'm here? If that's you this morning, I want to just invite you to sit there with him. It's okay if that's where we have to sit. It's okay. So I want to read Psalm 13 over us, and then I want to just invite you to sing or to pray or to just sit in the company of Jesus, if that's what you need. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? And how long must I wrestle with my thoughts, and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me.